Hello and welcome back to another week here at the Damage Report in the zone of American politics. It's not where we'd prefer to be, but it's where we're at. Thankfully, we're not alone. We've got Francesca Fiorentini. How's it going, Francesca?
Happy Monday.
That was either a good vampire or Natasha Lyonne.
Correction, that was a Bernie Sanders and giving the same energy that he says happy birthday.
That's true.
Happy Monday.
It's good. I think it was a better Natasha Lyonne though. But anyway, we'll check. But it was good either way. Russian Doll. Everyone go watch it if you haven't already. It's good. I'm gonna rewatch it soon. Anyway, Francesca, always glad to have you here. Who wants to greet a Monday without Francesca? Anyway, glad to have you here. Hear that you had an exciting episode of your show just yesterday.
Yeah, it was great. I'll have a better take on all of the same topics in the next hour.
They cannot be all the same. I won't allow it. And by the way, you are going to be appearing on The Young Turks today, right?
Yeah, it's a super fantastic Monday. So
geez,
don't go nowhere.
Yeah, so if you'd like to see Francesca, stick around here. If you'd like to see what's left of Francesca, she'll be on The Young Turks later on. They're gonna prop her up. Tuxedo Chitty is just gonna be propping up with tiny paws.
Oh, anyway. Yes, and in between, you can watch the show from the Bituation Room on my YouTube channel /FrannyFio.
Exactly, with one Kenneth Klippenstein. Whose day has certainly come. He's been doing some great work on the Amazon story. They had to finally admit that, oh yeah, I guess the P thing did happen. Well, what a goof, we forgot. We totally checked before saying it was untrue and smearing our opponents as liars and dupes. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. There are a lot of things that we are gonna be talking about. So stick around if you'd like discussions about whether people will be able to vote in the future, who is defending Matt Gaetz, and perhaps more importantly, who's not. We've got an uprising at a jail in St. Louis, interesting stuff there. And hey, what do you know? Trump was robbing his followers again. So that should be fun. We've got all that and more. So regardless of what platform you're on, thank you for being here. We really do appreciate it. And if you could hit the like button and share the stream, that would be great so that people know that the stream is live. And as we go through this hour, we can of course interact if you'd like via tweets, texts, chats, DMs, I don't know. Make a digital message and send it to us somehow and we'll probably see it. And with that said, Francesca, you wanna jump into this thing?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's run through the chain of events. The Georgia elections didn't go well for the Republicans, so they decided to pass a bill making it more difficult for people to vote. And then some corporations, I guess driven by the fact that people don't like these attacks against democracy and they wanna stand with where the consumers are, have stood against those bills. So you have companies like Delta and Coke putting out messages against this voting suppression bill. You also have the MLB deciding that they're gonna take away the, I'm gonna say all-star game from Georgia. And that is not okay from the point of view of Republicans, because all of these corporations have been saying things that are incorrect politically and they need to be struck down as a result of it. So here is the governor of Georgia speaking out against all of this political speech that he's found so inconvenient.
Yesterday, Major League Baseball caved to fear and lies from liberal activists. They ignored the facts of our new election integrity law, and they ignored the consequences of their decision on our local community. In the middle of a pandemic, Major League Baseball put the wishes of Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden ahead of the economic well-being of hard-working Georgians who are counting on the All-Star game for a paycheck. Georgians and all Americans should know what this decision means. It means cancel culture and partisan activists are coming for your business. They're coming for your game or event in your hometown. And they're coming to cancel everything from sports to how you make a living. And they will stop at nothing to silence all of us.
There, he's saying that, okay, there's them wanting people to not vote, which is its own form of cancel culture, but for some reason doesn't qualify. And there's the corporation saying, hey, we want consumers to know we think voting is good. That's cancel culture. to the right, Francesca. It doesn't make any sense to me. I guess when you pretend that your party is in favor of free speech and political expression and they're not, you're gonna sort of end up in these awkward, contorted places. But this seems like a hard sell to imply that a corporation saying what it either believes or more likely thinks consumers believe, that is cancel culture. I don't understand.
Yes, this is going to be the next 4 to 20 years of our lives talking about cancel culture. Just I just can't wait. I see the future. I see the grave of cancel culture. I lay a flower on it, and we never have to talk about it again. But this is of course now the culture war, and the only thing I want to cancel is the culture war. But here we are. It's a merry-go-round, and that's exactly right. Like the MLB, first of all, made its own damn mind up. Like they were not told by Stacey Abrams or Joe Biden. They're not, driven by anything. They're driven by money. And it's a bad look to put your game in a place that is like systematically disenfranchising a whole lot of black and brown people.
Yep.
Who, by the way, are our baseball consumers, right? They like the MLB. And it's not a good look for you. These are also people you're trying to sell ads to in commercial breaks. So like, look, the MLB is not a hero here, but they don't want drama. They don't want to be in a place that is politicized, right? Especially in the year 2021, right? We're not somehow they're trying to drag us back. GOP in Georgia are trying to drag us back to Jim Crow era, and so like by actually continuing the game, you are making a political statement. So, and I know we're gonna get into like whether or not that is a good thing to boycott the state. And I think there's a really interesting debate happening around that.
Sure.
But Kemp, honey, this is what's gonna happen. Like you wanna basically like put your talons in your democracy and completely contort it so that you win every single time and change the rules when you don't win, then suffer the consequences.
Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, I'm glad that you alluded to that. There's a debate about what the correct tactics should be, but you either believe that individuals and corporations can express things or not. I mean, here, we're not even talking about like huge amounts of unregulated campaign contributions. Like, I think we should have that conversation. Here, it's just like Coke put out a statement. You either think that corporations can do that or should do that, or you don't. So which is it? Is Coke fascist because they say, hey, people seem to like voting, so we're gonna be in favor of voting, or not? You liked Goya when they were with Trump. That was a corporation. Why didn't they keep their beans out of our politics? No, you liked it then. You like his pillow. He's all up in politics. So which is it? Should corporations be in politics or not? Personally, I say, let's just simplify things and get them all out of here. But that said, whether they're investing money in politics or not, they definitely want to be seen to be on the side of the people, and the people are on the side of the people voting. This shouldn't be a surprise. Now, it's not just about cancel culture, it's also about Stacey Abrams. He brought her up. Notably, she's a critic of the law, but she's pushed back on calls for sports leagues and corporations to boycott the state. She's not even necessarily in favor of it.
Exactly.
She said on Friday that she was disappointed that baseball officials had pulled the All-Star game, but she was proud of their stance on voting rights. So he says she's responsible for it when she's literally advocating for them to not do it. But you can, like, I guess you could forgive him since I'm sure he didn't look. He just thinks everything bad. That's gotta be Stacey Abrams. It wasn't enough that he cheated her out of an election win. Now he's got to hound her for literally years. Yes. So anyway, yeah, the whole thing, it really just, it's so nonsensical. It's so like they don't even have to pretend that their concept of cancel culture is based on anything. It is just what helps us right now. What makes us seem good right now. We like that. And if it's inconvenient later, we dispense it. Doesn't matter. Our followers will never call us out on that. We'll just do it. It'll be great.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that like Coke and Delta and the MLB, they did not do this out of the goodness of their hearts. They don't care. They don't have hearts. They're money grubbing stock buyback corporations that steal water resources from the world's population to bottle fizzy, overly sugary drinks. Like these are not the good guys. So what does that tell you about where we are in American history when the not good guys, the middle of the road, the most middle of the road, safe corporate brand is saying, nah, don't like it, not gonna touch it, don't like this voting law. It tells you that it's that actually what you're doing is controversial and that voting is non-controversial, that voting rights are non-controversial rights, right? This is the middle of the road. And so what side are Republicans on? 100 years ago. Just Jim Crow South, yes.
Yeah.
Like so far behind where we need to be. And so I know we're gonna talk about Trump, but like, just remember that. These aren't the heroes, they're the middle of the road towers. And Republicans are not even on board with that.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be. Featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity, the UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
The whole Georgia bill thing, the corporation speaking out against it, was an opportunity for Republicans to really take a long, hard look at what cancel culture is and what political speech they think is acceptable. Supposedly it was all of it. They're steamrolling right past that with Mitch McConnell saying parts of the private sector keep dabbling and behaving like a woke parallel government. Corporations will invite serious consequences if they become a vehicle for far-left mobs to hijack our country from outside the constitutional order. First of all, Mitch McConnell, literally never use the term woke, please. That goes for most people, but especially you, don't say it. God, I hate how that's been co-opted by the right. Yes, they're a parallel government and they're hijacking our country from outside the constitutional order. That's been happening recently and it's Coke that's doing it. It's not mobs of screaming people with helmets with horns pooping on the floor of the House. It's none of that. It's not sending slates of alternate electors. It's not dozens and dozens of Republican senators and Congress people voting to overturn an election. Nope, it's Coke. So there's that. Ben Shapiro, intellectual gladiator, is moving right past the obvious hypocrisy here, saying, I'm not a fan of boycotts at all, but there is only one thing worse than threatening to use political nuclear weapons, unilaterally disarming while the other side uses with political nuclear weapons. It's either mutually assured destruction or defeat. Pick. So like Delta putting out a statement saying, hey, stop suppressing people is a nuclear weapon. By the way, Jason Campbell points out on Twitter that back in 2019, he said, it's better for the country if people don't boycott businesses that donate to Nazi organizations. So sometimes boycotts are okay, sometimes not. It really depends. You know, Nazis, not so bad. Coke, anyway. We have a little bit more, but I want to give you a chance, Francesca. What do you think of them?
I do not know what Ben Shapiro is talking about. I literally, like, someone needs to
nuclear weapons.
Yeah, there needs to be like a translator, you know, like a Google Translate, but for like far right talking points that I don't understand. and just spit out and be like, I hate people of color. Like that's all it is. And yeah, back to you saying woke and people saying woke. Just again, put that into the translator and it comes out as black people. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. So every time you hear that, just hear like black people who want civil rights, to vote, to not be shot dead, to like own a home, those kinds of things. But yeah, I think the boycott question is a really interesting one. I mean, it is, Ilhan Omar has said that it has been effective in the past. And despite Stacey Abrams saying that she prefers that companies would not boycott, because remember, Delta and Coke have not boycotted the state, but MLB and some Hollywood directors are. But Ilhan Omar is saying, look, it's been successful in the past. And in fact, in this country, looking at Jim Crow South, like that was the civil rights movement, was boycotting companies, right? It was walking to work instead of taking a bus where you had to sit in the back. That's the bread and butter of so much of these movements. And so while I'm torn because I hate the idea that, that workers, not all of whom are Republican, of course, nor do I think people should be punished just because they are gonna lose out on work. I'm also like, you have to stick it to these Republicans who've made their state, for better or worse, trying to be so cozy with business. I mean, they've got tax breaks for businesses, which I'm not necessarily in agreement with, but I don't know. I do think corporations should they always wield their power for bad. They always are like, who can give me a better tax break? Where can I go? So why not sometimes wield that for good to show that there will be consequences for your crap politics?
Totally. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable, the idea that like businesses could lose out on business that they might have been expecting for a while, especially coming after the pandemic. I hate it. I don't know. People are desperate. Like we finally had an election that was like somewhat reflective of maybe this is what like the actual demographic and political breakdown of the state would produce in terms of representation. And then they immediately threw it in the garbage. And we might not have it again for decades, even with the great work of activist groups and all of that. So yeah, people are gonna try a lot of different tactics. Weighing in, and also weighing in on the voter fraud, voter suppression discussion going on about corporations in Georgia, all of that. The former president decided to post a frantic, maddening statement. We're not gonna read the whole thing, but we're gonna read parts of it. Now, it goes like this, and this is totally not a tweet. It's a formal presidential statement. For years, the radical left Democrats have played dirty by boycotting products when anything from that company is done or stated in any way that offends them. I'm gonna stop right there. Everyone does that. Everyone sometimes doesn't like things. And when they don't like it, they say something or they don't support something. That's not a liberal thing. That's not a conservative thing. That's just a thing. They were boycotting Keurig and everybody boycotts stuff.
Remember the Nike shoe? Remember when white guys were burning their shoes?
Yeah, and now they're doing it again because there's blood in their shoes. So they want to boycott Nike, who didn't even make the shoes. They're boycotting companies that don't make things that irritate them. So anyway, everybody does that. Now they are going big time with woke cancel culture and our sacred election. Stop saying sacred, dude. It's Easter and this is what you're talking about. The last thing you're worried about is the sacred. It is finally time for Republicans and conservatives to fight back. We have more people than they do by far, except when it comes to votes. Boycott Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, JP Morgan Chase. Hey, that's actually a good one. I'm pro Trump now. Viacom, CBS, Citigroup, Cisco, UPS, and Merck, everyone. Don't go back to their products until they relent. We can play the game better than them. They didn't play the game better. They didn't even get I just don't. I'm gonna skip to the end. After all of that, happy Easter. This man is just filled with faith and the spirit of the Lord. Happy Easter. Anyway, so hey, what do you know? He's in favor of boycotting everyone. I guess all of those corporations have made statements about this. I haven't even seen some of these, but he's tracked them down because there's nothing he likes better than compiling a list of enemies.
Trump is his last statement was on Friday. He disappeared for 3 days. He's resurrected as a zombie. And here he is. Happy Easter. Can you imagine? Jesus comes back. Anyway, the radical left. You're just like, no.
That cave sucked. It was the worst. There were rats nipping at my heels. Oh, happy Easter.
I was canceled.
Judas, you totally canceled me, you dick. Anyway.
It's just so like I hate all these corporations too, like you're saying, but I'm like, yeah, let's take our money and move it from Chase into credit unions and community banking and all those things. Yeah. And he's like, anyone want to loan me some money? Like Deutsche Bank? No. Oh, you're in deep crap because of me. Okay. Like where are they going? They're just inventing. They've boycotted everything at this point. Are we still boycotting the NFL? I feel like that's still a thing we're still doing.
There's not going to be any sports left. There's not going to be any left. As this voting rights debate continues, right now focused on Georgia, but understand that like Texas is passing bills like that. We're going to be seeing this in Arizona, a number of other states. How the media covers this, I think, is going to be very important. What lesson is the American people going to learn from this debate? And I already have reasons to worry. The New York Times had like a sub headline saying that this debate over voting rights was pitting Democrats versus populist Republicans.
Jesus.
What does that have to do with populism, trying to stop people from voting? That is not how any of that's supposed to work. Man, does that word have no meaning anymore. And then we have little thought experiments. So I believe this is Allison Camerota. Let's take a look at her hypothesizing about potentially one of the silver linings of the Georgia bill.
The fiction, okay, of vast voting fraud is what this is predicated on. But Republicans, polling suggests, believe that there has been vast voting fraud. As you know, President Trump talked about it ad nauseum. And so is there some potential upside to some of these laws that it will assuage the anxiety of Republicans?
Oh, God.
He said yes, by the way. And then the co-host later on was like, it's a lie, though. You don't have to assuage a lie, which, yeah, that should be clear. They believe it. They don't. What does belief mean? We talk about this a lot on this show for some reason. You could believe that voting fraud is happening because you keep seeing it. You see lots of suspicious stuff. You come across issues registering yourself. All of that, you could be gathering evidence, or you could believe it because the same people who passed the bill told you it happened. And that's it. And it doesn't matter how many court cases fail, none of that. No matter how many experts testify, you believe it because the people who are lying to you lied to you. That's it.
This was the whole problem, I think, with Trumpism and the media, because especially when it comes to elections, they love to like sit in a diner and talk to like regular old Joe. And like technically that is, I would argue, I used to think better than just referring to pundits, like talk to actual people, see what they think, and then you uncritically are putting people on the mic who are like, I believe that Q is inhabiting my body, using my NutriBullet, and you're like, wait, okay, maybe we should move to somebody else now and not talk. But like, that's the thing is like, well, that's what's out there, and it's this like vicious cycle of, well, this is what people believe, so we have to cater to them, and the both sidesism that that establishment media is so obsessed with, without informing. They don't do that much lots of reporting, not as much informing.
That's true. Yeah, this is not if people believe it, but like your segment is not intentionally, but it is contributing to confusion. It's kicking up like dirt. And so like we all aren't really sure. No, we're all sure. It was a secure election, fair election. Everybody involved in the election said that. At the time, Republicans were saying that, those who were actually managing the election, including in Georgia. There should be no doubt about that. But there is doubt about that because of all the lying, and there will continue to be doubt about it because people won't call it like it is. This is a knee-jerk reaction to losing an election by the losing side to try to make it less likely that they lose in the future by weeding out as many voters as possible.
What she's asking is, do the jangly keys help distract them? Or do they like the bright colors, or they like the sounds that the jangly keys make? And it's like, I guess, yeah, they're momentarily distracted.
Yeah.
I wish it were a decoy bill. You know what I mean? If there was like some sort of decoy, there were a decoy state. I mean, it's really Florida. We could just send everyone to.
Unfortunately, no, it's all too real. And law, at least for now, will follow. Like, as soon as like there's a court challenge, we're gonna be following it. But as of right now, it's very real. Over the weekend, more and more anonymous behind-the-scenes accounts have come out of Republicans saying that Matt Gaetz is probably not going to survive the number of different scandals that are now engulfing him. The sex trafficking, the use of campaign funds, and then all the sleazy behavior like showing off, apparently without any consent, nude photos of women he'd been with or whatever. What's interesting though is that with all of this going on and this scandal now reaching almost a full week, you know who hasn't spoken out in defense of Matt Gaetz? The guy that Matt Gaetz was more loyal to than perhaps anyone in the country. Donald Trump. According to two people familiar with the matter, Trump has been closely monitoring the scandal. The ex-president has casually quizzed several confidants about what they think of the situation, if there's anything he should do about it. Multiple people close to Trump have flatly advised him to stay out of it, refrain from publicly defending Gaetz, they're telling him, at least for the time being. And two different sources say that in all of the conversations they're aware of, Trump has appeared to ultimately agree with the recommendations to keep quiet. One of the sources added that the former president has lamented that the whole thing seems really bad for Gaetz, while also mentioning that the allegations could be a smear against the Trump uber loyalists. So look, you can have as many sources as you want saying he seems to be accepting the advice. We don't need those sources. It's been almost a week and he hasn't said anything. So by his lack of behavior, he seems to agree with that philosophy. And whether he thinks it's really bad or a smear, which in modern American politics just means an inconvenient thing about you. It's a way of just taking a criticism and saying it's not fair to make it. I don't know. But anyway, Matt Gaetz has lived on Fox News for years defending Trump against every possible scandal, every bit of criticism. And now Matt Gaetz is in the lowest point of his very low life, his darkest moment. And Trump is not repaying his loyalty, not one bit, not in any way that anyone publicly can see. He is just leaving him out there. Thoughts, Francesca? Do you think it's gonna change?
I love it. I love it.
You love it?
I'm just so happy. I hate that guy. Yeah, it's almost like when it comes to Trump and loyalism, it's a one-way street. It's almost
like that.
Weird how he just wants everything to come his way, but he's incapable of any kind of love or empathy when it comes the other way. Yeah, there is nothing in this for Trump defending Gaetz. If he were still in the White House, of course, why not? You run the table, it's fine. There's nothing. Look, Tucker Carlson's not coming out to defend him. He wants nothing to do with it. Trump doesn't want to talk to him. Who knows if like Gaetz is gonna be like, you remember we took that one selfie with that one girl and Nobody wants to touch Gaetz. And this is like, former groper in chief. This is Donald Trump. How many dozens of sexual assault allegations are we running on here? One currently making its way through the courts right now.
Totally.
And I think it speaks to, look, I have thoughts on what's actually gonna happen to Gaetz. I don't see him resigning. I see him potentially even winning re-election if unchallenged. But because I think the only place he's still employable is Congress. Think about it. No one else is gonna employ him except for the voters that he's been duping for years.
What about his dad's car wash or his auto dealership or whatever? He could probably get a job there. I mean, I don't know why you would resign as a Republican. Your voters don't care. They don't care about any of this stuff. A lot of them are just jealous. They wish they could be doing it. And by the way, thank you to Lucid Fox for the raid and for everyone joining us. We're breaking down Matt Gaetz being thrown under the bus by Trump, despite all of his years of loyalty. And Francesca, you pointed out that there's supposed to be honor among thieves in this case, honor among sexual assaulters. So Donald Trump got defended by Matt Gaetz for his many, many sexual assaults, and he's not repaying it. Meanwhile, there is a bit of it some of the only people in Congress that have actually spoken out on the record in defense of Matt Gaetz have faced their own stories like this. We have 2 House Republicans, Judiciary Ranking Republican Jim Jordan, who has himself faced allegations that he ignored serial sexual assault. It's not really a sex scandal, it's an I'm looking the other way as dozens of kids are raped scandal, but you get what I'm saying. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, look, I understand that as part of her deal with Satan, she has to be on the wrong side of literally every issue. And she herself has her own stories that you can Google. It's not a scandal that should matter politically, but it's interesting if nothing else. So they have stood by Matt Gaetz to their credit, but few others are. And it's partially, I think, because everybody hates Matt Gaetz. That's a TV show coming to NBC soon. They really do all hate him, and it looks really bad. And so who wants to leap to the defense of a person who might be facing calls, whether he will resign or not? He might be facing calls to resign fairly soon.
Yeah, I think it is also a win for Republicans like Liz Cheney, who, Matt Gaetz has been trying to accuse of being, Biden loyalists because they didn't vote against, verifying an election, and thought the Capitol insurrection was wrong, right? Matt Gaetz was leading this charge. He was like, yeah, it's all about MAGA. We're going forward. Woo, woo, and there's been a rift in the Republican Party. And so, for as inconsequential in terms of if he will resign or not, or if he's reelected, I do think it takes him down a few pegs and a few important pegs if you want a Republican Party that is minimally less nuts, which I think we all do, even though I believe it's a slippery slope into, crazy. I would prefer them to not want to overturn Democratic elections.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's arguably a good thing if he's sort of sidelined. It clears out a little bit more of the path for Tucker Carlson to become the nominee. There's a good chance that over the weekend you saw footage that might look like what we're about to show you. At the St. Louis Justice Center, what is being termed an uprising. Take a look at this footage. So you can see there blankets being draped out in a rope, sort of the universal symbol that someone needs help. But there were fires that were lit, windows were broken, obviously. This is the 4th incident at this particular prison, and there's a reason for it. It's not just random, although we don't know exactly how it began. And there's a lot more footage out there. I don't want to glorify and there's a message behind here more so than a couch being burned or whatever. I don't want to glorify that, but Missouri House of Representatives Representative Rasheen Aldridge Jr. said those in connection with the protests had 2 demands: end cash bail and resume speedy and fair court hearings that have been delayed because of the pandemic. She goes on to say that detainees are being held without trial and unable to pay their bail, causing a system that disproportionately puts poor and black people behind bars. If we care about justice, these systems need to change. And this is really like the ultimate collision of multiple different unjust elements of our system, that you have cash bail, that can exist in the first place, that you can be held for months and months and months if you can't make that bail, and that might be dragged out because of a pandemic, that also, while you're being held, you have a much better chance of getting and possibly dying from COVID. None of these things individually are acceptable. The confluence of them should be a national outrage, and it's not. And so it's time that there's a focus on it. And these sorts of uprisings, chaos or whatever, does actually put the focus on these issues at long last.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about boycotts earlier. I mean, they're like prison hunger strikes, boycotts, so-called riots have been effective because they actually get national attention for as, salacious or as if something's on fire, then we have to cover it. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't talk about the incredibly broken and inhumane criminal justice system in which people are dying every single day, pandemic or not. But the pandemic specifically has been, are prisoners being prioritized for the vaccine? I don't think so.
Imagine if they were, what the next 6 months of Fox News would be.
Absolutely. And these are people who have not been convicted. These are detainees. This could be unpaid parking tickets, right? Like this could be like, who knows what they are, right? We've got, horrible cash bond systems as well in this country. I don't know the laws in Missouri specifically. But yeah, these are folks who cannot pay their bail and now are being in incredibly unsafe situations and being held there. So good on them for doing this. And again, this is the only time like media outlets actually cover it, when we should be really trying to dismantle these systems altogether. I mean, my brother's a public school teacher and he's going back to school soon, and his class is gonna be like 10 people, 10 kids. And honestly, that's the way classrooms should always be. It's like few kids rather than 25 to 30 kids in a crammed classroom. And you see the same thing in a system like the jail system. Not only are people being held unjustly when they can't pay, but also they're already in cramped quarters, right? And they're already being held against their will. Is it okay to hold people, to have so much overcrowding in jails and prisons across the country, in detention centers as well? Is that humane? I mean, I feel like the pandemic is also really helping us think about what's just a slower burning version of inhumanity.
Exactly. Now, I want to read just a couple of numbers for you. This is information that we covered back in December when the study came out. We've been talking about the conditions in the pandemic during the previous spikes. And let's just note that nothing was done, basically. Like at some point, movies will be made, documentaries, books will be written about all of the failures. And there were many failures in America's response to the pandemic. But what we willingly allowed to happen in state and federal prisons needs to be a part of that conversation.
Yes.
1 in every 5 state and federal prisoners in the US tested positive for the coronavirus. This is as of December, by the way. We all remember how terrible December and January were. People are still, we've got more than 70,000 cases a day now. So these numbers are outdated, but it's what we have. That is a rate more than 4 times as high as the general population. In some states, more than half of all of the prisoners were infected. At least 275,000 prisoners as of December, again, with more than 1,700 having died, a massive death toll. And Homer Venters, former chief medical officer at Rikers, which is one of the places where initially there were lots of concerns about this, and then everything that was predicted happened, and we just sort of moved on as a country, said that number is a vast undercount. I still encounter prisons and jails where when people get sick, not only are they not tested, but they don't receive care, so they get much sicker than need be. So that 275,000 infections, those are not the number of infections, they're the number of tested infections. Tons of people just got sick, maybe were asymptomatic, or maybe suffered with it and will suffer the consequences of long COVID for potentially the rest of their life. But their lives were valued so little that they weren't even tested for it, let alone treated. And this is like with the anti-Asian hate that continues to this day, something that has been talked about from the very beginning, but it was like a monumental task to get people to even pretend to care about it. Anything having to do with prisoners in America, nobody cares what happens. And if you advocate for them to have even basic human dignity or rights, you will be pitched as some sort of villain, in fact, that you want them to get medical care or be able to participate in politics, even insofar as voting, all of that. And that's just what we allow in America. There's almost no debate over it even at this point.
But they're all mass murderers, John. They're all
every one of them.
Every single one of them is a homicidal murder. Oh, wait, no. Sorry, those guys get taken to Burger King, and they probably have a special cell all for themselves. Isn't that funny? I feel like the more dangerous criminals do get like different. I don't know. Aren't they like separated off? Maybe I'm being crazy.
I mean, there's
about that.
There's maximum versus minimum security prisons and stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah. Anywho, yeah. It's ridiculous. There's been a lot of good reporting on this. So I think you're absolutely right. We need a reckoning, and it's part of accountability for all of the deaths that have occurred under COVID, and under the previous administration specifically. And this is definitely part of that.
Agreed. Politically, Donald Trump has never really been all that consistent. He was pro-choice and he's pro-life. He's swapped on a lot of things over the course of his life. But there's one thing he's always been true to. There's always been a core part of him, and that is that he will rob you. And if you love him, he will rob you even more, and he'll appreciate it even more as he does it. So look, this has happened in many different instances, Trump University and every product he's ever made and all of that. But now we've got a story of him bilking his fans for millions of dollars. So it starts back during the closing months of the presidential election when he was facing a cash crunch and getting badly outspent by the Democrats. His campaign had begun last September to set up recurring donations by default for online donors for every week until the election. Contributors had to wade through a fine print disclaimer and manually uncheck a box to opt out. So many people donate to politicians. Many of them don't expect that unless they use Sherlock Holmes level powers of searching, that they might make that same donation every week without knowing it. So let's take a look at how this played out and how bad it actually got for some individuals, because we're not talking about $5 or $10 here. This tactic ensnared scores of unsuspecting Trump loyalists, retirees, military veterans, nurses, experienced political operatives who just got a little bit more experience. Soon, banks and credit card companies were inundated with fraud complaints from the president's own supporters about donations they had not intended to make, sometimes for thousands of dollars. By the way, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of refund requests. So let's give you a couple examples. We have one, Stacey Blatt, who was in hospice care. So it starts off rough. Last September, listening to Rush Limbaugh's dire warnings about how badly Trump's campaign needed money, he went online and chipped in everything he could, $500. It was a big sum for a 63-year-old battling cancer and living in Kansas City on less than $1,000 per month. Now hold on a second, it's gonna get worse, but Trump is a billionaire, and this person who's barely managing to survive is giving way too much of their money. That is devastating. No rich, we shouldn't have rich people in politics, but if we're gonna have rich people in politics, make them fund their own campaigns. You should, working class people who've been duped into supporting them should not be the ones that have to give way too much to help them out. But the 500, which is way too much, apparently wasn't enough for Donald Trump, because that single contribution, and federal records show it was his first ever political contribution, quickly multiplied. Another $500 was withdrawn the next day, then 500 the next week, and every week through mid-October without his knowledge, until his bank account had been depleted and frozen. They literally drained him until the bank cut off his accounts. If the bank hadn't cut off his accounts, they would have kept draining him for thousands more dollars. They were only stopped because he had no more blood to give to Donald Trump. Anyway, his utility and rent payments bounced. They soon discovered $3,000 in withdrawals in less than 1 month. And they called their bank to say they were victims of fraud. And they were, but it was worse than they thought. It wasn't a mistake. That was by design. The fraud was Trump's campaign. And they had been ensnared in it because they admired him. They looked up to him. They loved him. They supported him. They had faith in him. And that was not a good idea. Now we've got more, we'll give you more details, but Francesca, what do you think?
When you run the country like a business, makes you rethink business just a little bit. It's devastating. And this is something we cannot forget, because we know that Fox News and all the other OAN and little, spin-offs of Fox News, none of them are gonna cover this. None of them are gonna cover this, but it reminds you of when this guy was in the White House and wanted his supporters to gather during a pandemic to spit on one another and scream, "Make America Great Again," and die and freeze in the cold. He doesn't care about his supporters' lives. He doesn't. And this is one other example of he disrespects them. He thinks they're dumb. He gouge them for all they've got. Also, I'm a billionaire. Also, I'm so self-funded. Now I'm going to cheat you. It makes no sense. And in some way, I feel bad. Obviously, this is an extreme case. You feel bad. But at the same time, look at this man. He's told you over and over again who he is. He doesn't care. He has no scruples. He will walk over your dead body in order to, reach the White House again. Literally. Doesn't care. And so, yeah.
Yeah, we feel bad for them because we're like afflicted by this like empathy or whatever that Trump has never experienced. It's a foreign concept to him. But you also have to acknowledge it ain't the first time he's been shown to con his own people. Like the Trump University thing should have been it. That should have been it. It's too much. It's this businessman taking this mythology that had been built up about his abilities. It doesn't exist, but people believed it because of TV and commercials and all that. And these people who just desperately wanted to learn to be like him, who respected him above everyone else in the world, put all of the money they had and money they didn't have to learn at his feet, and he robbed them. And we all saw it. He had to pay a fine as a result of it. And millions of Americans just said, that looks like nothing to me. He's still great. I still love him. I still take my money. Rich man who doesn't need it, take my money. I want to give you another example of what that looks like. Victor Amelino, a 70-year-old Californian, yelled bandits in this New York Times write-up. He made a $990 online donation to Trump in early September. It recurred 7 more times, adding up to almost $8,000 in just a couple of months. He said, I'm retired. I can't afford to pay all that damn money. I don't know how he could afford to pay the $990. But they just kept taking it over and over. And let me show you a little bit of visualization of how this actually worked, because it changed a few times as they became more and more desperate. So you can see boxes like this when you go to make the donation that you can check to make it a monthly recurring donation. And just to make it a little bit more convenient, they auto check it for you. So you have to see that and uncheck it, or else they will drain you of every goddamn cent you have. Then they have additional donations for his birthday. What, for cake? He's a billionaire, he doesn't need it anyway. Then they go on to this, where it's going to automatically recur until the election. Then they have a different box, or else like it's multiple boxes that all accomplish the same thing, taking more of your money. So it does tell you in smaller font that they're gonna deduct $100 automatically on 9/29. But the big bolded stuff is, I need your help to debate him. You can see this one, again, multiple boxes. And the stuff about it being recurring payments is getting smaller and smaller as a part of the message. And this is, again, like if you're a conservative and you're watching this, like, why are you criticizing Trump? I'm never gonna see that because I'm not donating to him. You guys are. This was only ever going to affect people who loved Trump the most, and they took advantage of that. They either thought they were stupid or thought they were gullible, or they thought, hey, maybe we'll just snag a few and we'll take so much money from them. And then eventually have to give back a little bit of it, because as you can see, the calls for refunds soared once they added that second checkbox. Every campaign has to refund some money. You know, sometimes it's if people have donated more than the legal limit or whatever, they just request it. It's like Biden had a little bit. Look at how Trump skyrockets as a direct result of the fraud. Now, that means that those people realized it and hopefully got their money back, but there have to be a bunch that didn't, just got robbed by the guy that they loved. And let's keep it real, probably still love, probably still respect, probably still look up to, even after this experience.
Look, I get it, man. Audible was charging me for like a year, and I had a steady job, and I was like, I don't know, $9.99. I listen to that many audiobooks. No, you don't. And so yeah, everyone check your bank statements. You know, it's tax time. Get your money back, but of course this was going to happen. And it's so brilliant. This company called WinRed, which was the one that orchestrated all of this for the Trump campaign, they made money on the refunds. They got money back every time. I'm assuming from the people who donated. Where else is the money gonna come from? I don't know, but they got money, and they're still going. They're still practicing. They were helping Kelly Loeffler's campaign, Purdue's campaign in Georgia. Like they're rampant. They're still there. So tell your friends and family who vote Republican and who get these emails, even if you can't reach them politically, but like check your statements, bro. Read through the fine print, which is, it's bizarre. It's like, oh, did you mean to uncheck that box? Because I feel like maybe you didn't. Maybe you wanna. Do you not wanna not support? Yes, donate if perhaps check.
And you're like, what? I can simplify it. never give money to these dishonest people. And for that 4-month period of massive fundraising, right before the election, through all the big lie and all that, you had Republicans from around the country running ads, stand with Trump to stop the steal. Little tiny print. This money's actually going to me, not to him. Like, and it was so many of them, so many, and even Trump stuff. The vast majority of it wasn't even going to his futile court cases. And he was recurring stealing from people. All of those all at once in a couple of different months should result in a couple of years of people not donating to Republicans. That they learn that this is just a massive grift. Yes. Hundreds of millions of dollars of grift. But that lesson, I'll bet every dollar I have, like they were forced to, that lesson will not be learned. And that Republicans will have learned from this. Those double check boxes and everything, Marjorie Greene's gonna have those in her emails in like 5 days, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And you're just gonna have more and more of this sophisticated grift, and the people who are gonna be robbed are conservatives. So I guess at the end of the day, it's really their problem to fix, but I care enough about honesty and the truth that I'll at least tee it up for them. Yeah, and Barkley points out in Twitch, it's basically a $50 million interest-free loan at the moment he needed it. Sure, he pays it back later, but he needed the money then. Even though theoretically he doesn't need the money since he swears he's a billionaire. Certainly doesn't act like it, the way he robs people. Welcome back to the weekly top 10 list with me, Johnny DeRolla and Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, welcome back.
Hi, good to be here.
Glad to have you here. So every Sunday night, I send the rundown, and on that I include my idea for the top 10 list. And I always want to give you an opportunity to change it or whatever. I realize this one's a bit presumptuous because it is the top 10 foods most responsible for the pandemic 15. But the thing is, you obviously haven't gained any weight, so I don't know how you
don't know that.
Yours. You haven't.
You don't
You're
know that.
Great. Stop it.
No. I am like, do I need to get all new pants? Or can I get back into these pants? I think we're all at that moment.
I have a bag of clothes that like, it's the most naive, idealistic thing about me that I still keep those because someday they'll fit. Stupid John, It's never gonna happen. That's like 3 upsizings ago. Anyway, but you've got 5 foods?
I do, yeah. They were gonna all be different kinds of the same food.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're gonna learn something. So when I eventually have a massive heart attack, you're gonna be able to provide this to the coroner to guide their inspection of my remains. So what is your number 5 pandemic weight?
Okay, I guess I'll save the biggest one for number 1. But okay, number 5 is a weird one, but almond butter. Okay, let's just preface this by saying I don't eat a lot of junk food. I don't occasionally I'll have a donut. I'm not a big junk food person. I don't buy it, therefore I don't eat it. And so that's my story and I'm sticking to it. But I will say almond butter, crunchy almond butter is so effing good. And it is not that good for you. Like you can't so I do like a almond butter on toast with like honey and banana, like I'm a kid.
Ooh, that sounds good.
It's so yummy. And it's not good for you, but after a while, that can't necessarily be your breakfast all the time. There's a lot of calories in like just a layer of almond butter.
Yeah.
But
I've never understood
yummy
how peanut butter is like, it's like has roughly the same calories as lead, basically for the same space. But it's very good, very good. Oh God, that breakfast sounds so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, my number 5, and I rated these. Really, it's what I think. If you were to break down what has led to the most weight gain, this one is on the lower end, just because it's so not necessary that I've actually cut back. But even so, it deserves a spot. And it is, I don't know exactly what to call this. The brands that sell it are like Sponge and Arcoiris, something like that. It's a Mexican cookie. And you get them a big box that has little wrapped packages of like 8 of them. And the cookie is like a little graham, and it's got like 4 puffball marshmallows on it. And between the marshmallows, it has a little ball of like fruit jelly. And it like crumbles in your mouth as you eat it. And it's marshmallowy and cookie. And it has a lot of calories, but your body can't tell. So you can eat the whole box in one sad sitting. And I have so many times. Oh
damn, you gotta individually unwrap. So you gotta do the
you
work.
Unwrap a packet of like 4, and there's like 8 of those in a box.
Damn.
The math is just horror, but they're so good. Anyway.
That's like, I think that might have, I'm gonna be a crunchy liberal on this part, but like that sounds like some corn syrup effect. Cause like if it's corn, it's got corn syrup, you can't, it just feels like you're still hungry. You're like, oh, I need more of this.
Yep.
Anyway, it's good.
Anyway, what's your number 4?
Okay, number 4 is salt. Everything is boring in the pandemic, and I'm an oversalter, and I've read that means you're an overtaster, which means you just have really good taste. And
wait, you need to put more salt, which proves you have great taste buds?
Yes.
That's the opposite of, okay.
No, because salt makes literally everything better, and a world without salt is a world I don't want to live in. However, salt makes you just keep the water weight. Like I drink a lot of water. I don't think it does a good job of flushing it out. So like, I'm not large, but I definitely get my bloat on sometimes, like where I'm like, okay, all right, I am not pregnant so far as I know, but like lots of salt, like you just retain. So that's my thing, salt.
That's a good one. I didn't know we could go that elemental though, or else I would have just put sugar. I mean, I'm about to. All of this is sugar basically, but yeah. The water. The
water weight.
Anyway, my number 4 is I think it's the healthiest thing on my list. And I like to tell myself that it's not that bad for you. My wife swears it is. And whether she's right or not, it's a lot and I eat it all the time. So I'm gonna say number 4 is breakfast burritos. Breakfast burritos are nature's perfect food.
Yes.
It's the best food ever if you make it right. And the way that you do that is stop putting stuff that isn't breakfasty in your breakfast burritos. You don't need beans. You don't need any of that stuff. It's eggs, cheese, sausage. There, boom, amazing.
I'll make it even worse for you. It's eggs, cheese, sausage if you want, plus potatoes or hash browns.
Sure.
Bomba.
That's fine. Yeah, that's really good. And you can make it a Taco Bell Crunchwrap Supreme, as I so frequently do. But it's just perfect. You can eat it at any time. Honestly, I'm working to get breakfast taken out of the name because I feel like that's limiting. And it's on the list because even though it's not the worst, you're eating eggs. It's just so much, and I've eaten so many of them, and I feel a little bit bad about it.
What's your favorite? Is it Taco Bell or is it like?
No.
You make it yourself at home? Cause that's
so my
healthy.
wife makes really good ones, but no, I go to Coco's, which is a restaurant. I don't know if it exists outside of LA or where it exists, but they make really good ones.
Dude, I gotta go.
I eat everywhere breakfast burritos. Everywhere.
I have one near me that puts hash browns in it, and like the other day, it was like I think they just left the hash browns on the griddle a little too long, and so it was just a grease bomb, like. So when it like hits the sides of your mouth.
Yeah.
And I was like, this might be a little much.
Now let me take another bite.
Yeah. Oh, one more bite. Now like put it away, put a napkin over it. Okay, maybe one more bite. Put it in the trash. Okay, maybe one more bite.
Wow.
A 3, right?
Number 3. Yeah, 3.
3, 2. Okay, so these are pretty obvious. Mine are not interesting because I don't junk food enough. But these are the things I do. No, but I am a vegetarian and sometimes lazy. Ergo, pasta. I buy Costco pasta, all the different kinds of like the ringlets, the rigatoni, the bucatini, the whatever, like the fusilli. I'm Italian and I love pasta, and I don't want to live in a world without pasta. And I love pasta, and I don't want to be gluten-free ever.
Yeah, don't change it. Like pasta's got issues, but don't fix them.
just
because your fix is bad.
Yeah, your fix is. I don't want your lentil crap and your rice pasta even. Like that is separate. I'm also Chinese, and we'll talk about rice. But like, I love pasta, and yes, if anything, just eat a little bit less of it. It's fine because once again, you're full at about halfway through the giant bowl you served yourself.
No, but it's
still there.
It's the stuff after you're full that's the best.
Yes.
And by the way, we're lumping. It's pasta or it's not. You can press anything into a tube. That don't make it ziti. It's not actually pasta.
God. So that's, I guess more specifically, lasagna. So we've been making like lasagna because you have this repertoire where you're like, these are my, so it was like lasagna and ziti. And I swear to God, we got into a moment where we were pretty much like every 4 days having another giant thing of either lasagna or ziti. And then we were like, maybe this is too much. And then we
say
took
from the floor.
Exactly. We took a 2-week break, and let me just say that like a nice lasagna, nice ziti every 2 weeks, much more delicious. You're gonna appreciate it more. But yes, during the pandemic, it was like, why can't I not eat lasagna every day?
If you're making lasagna more than once a week, even I know you've got a problem. That's not okay. And also, I have another problem. It's that I think that somehow lasagna is way worse than baked ziti. It's all the same stuff. But lasagna, if you're making cake out of your pasta, that's too much. By the way, pasta should be on my list. It's not. I'm an idiot. How is it not? Breakfast burritos. Get out of here, breakfast burritos. My new number 4 is pasta. My wife makes pasta all the time. It's really good, but I eat too much of it. Also mac and cheese, which is basically pasta. We treat it like it's not pasta. It's just pasta with cheese sauce. But anyway, my number 3 is stroopwafel, which is very specific. I will grant you that. But if you haven't had it, it's from like the Netherlands or something. It's like a very thin, crispy waffle with a layer of caramel and then another very thin, crispy waffle. And it's just a thin little disc. And TYT is trying to kill me because they bring so many things of stroopwafel in. And it's like each one individually, maybe not so bad, although you're literally eating caramel first thing in the morning for some reason. But with that thing in its little tube, you could knock out a rhino with it. And they just leave it here in the pandemic as if I'm not the only person here. So
are you guys still getting snack deliveries? You're still getting snack
in a couple weeks, thankfully.
Okay.
But like every stroopwafel that came in, I ate. I didn't throw any away, and there was no one else. So however many have come in, that's what I put in my body. Thanks a lot. Anyway, they're very good. But you can just eat a million.
Wait, I love the idea that
calories, and you could just eat 10 of them.
I love the idea that no one else is in the office, and the snack deliveries keep coming, and they keep getting eaten.
The same deliveries as when there were 40 people out there. Anyway, don't do the numbers on it.
That's satanic.
It's probably, I blame Q. Anyway, what's your number 2?
Okay, number 2, like I said, since I'm Italian, now we gotta go to the other starch, the greatest starch in the world. Yes, it's rice. I love rice. My stomach just growled when I said rice. I love plain rice. I love rice like I made a jambalaya. Nothing but rice. I love risotto, which is nothing but rice, also Italian, but like I eat rice all of the time. And I'm like a sumo wrestler. Sumo wrestlers, they eat a giant bowl of rice with like a little bit of something, veggies or meat on top, and then they go right to sleep. So they don't burn any calorie. They just, use it. They're strong as, they're not fat. They're just strong. They're fat, they're strong. And I love rice, and I just wanna, have someone spoon feed me Donburi all the time.
As you become less and less capable of holding your body up.
Yes.
I like rice in general. I love fried rice. I love like biryanis. But that said,
anything with
putting
rice.
it above pasta, I don't know.
Because it's more versatile. It's
what?
Yeah.
More versatile than pasta? There's 1,000 pastas.
I know, but
Crazy.
I don't like to just, if it were pasta with nothing, like no butter, no salt, I can't enjoy that. I'll eat it, but I won't enjoy it.
And all it takes is butter. shoots up anyway. Okay, good.
Rice,
good choice.
white rice, nothing. I will house that. I mean, I like the flavor of just white rice.
I mean, I'll eat a poke bowl right now. I might soon.
So
anyway,
hungry right now.
Oh God, yes. My number 2 is, and it has to be on the list because I literally made a list of this. My number 2, Pop-Tarts. If you know me, you know that I love Pop-Tarts and it will be the death of me. Pop-Tarts are always there, everywhere, if you're me. But especially, you go to any store, you can buy Pop-Tarts. You can buy 2 of them, you can buy a whole box. They cost nothing and they have more calories percent than any food known to man. And they're just there and you can just eat them. You carry them around, you could toast them if you're feeling fancy.
I like how you talk about them like they're guns. Like they're just there, anyone can buy them. You don't need
no waiting period.
Lock them up.
You should probably. I need Pop-Tart control in my life. I'm dying. Anyway, they're so good. I've gone on at length. You can watch the other top 10 lists, but it's a problem for me.
Every time I wasn't allowed sugary cereals as a kid, and I wasn't allowed sugary breakfast. And so I remember when I first ate a Pop-Tart, I was like, oh, well, that's crack. like, well, that should be illegal. Like I never got the flavor and the like hankering for it. But sugar is about hankering. So it's like the more you eat it, the more you do want it.
It's vicious in that way.
Pop-Tarts are good. It is a little criminal that they are just let you get as many as you want. Number 1.
Number 1.
Okay, well, this was going to be my top 5 of foods, which is not really food, but I consume it and it's not good, which is gin, vodka, whiskey, Campari.
Campari?
Campari, so good.
Oh, I know it.
And let's add brandy.
You're drinking brandy in the pandemic?
I've been drinking brandy. I straight up got some Hennessy, and I've been making some Wisconsin old fashions, which are delicious. And I made a whiskey old fashioned so good the other day that I like did a donkey kick of joy. Like it was so yummy. I was so proud of myself. The orange and the maraschino, the old maraschino cherry.
Ooh, that part sounds good.
Well, I have become a cocktail fiend. I drink a cocktail nearly every day, and I'm trying to cut back. Just because I don't need it, because I can see people who are vaccinated now. But yes, it's been alcohol. Oh my God, the weight gain is from alcohol. It's so good. I haven't done too much of it, but the ones I do, just a yummy cocktail.
I love the idea that you just totally alone drink it. It's so good.
Yeah, you know when you have to just kick the air, like just like a high.
Well, it's like in TV when they take like a shot of whiskey, their legs will shake or something. You're a cartoon character in real life, basically.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. And it's why I think for the first time ever, our number 1s are the same alcohol. It's the number 1 weight gain thing. It's the number 1 reason I have a headache right now. It's the number 1 thing I've relied on throughout the pandemic. If I could see all of the alcohol I've drank in a pile during the pandemic, I would probably start drinking it again. But no, it would be so much like big cheap jugs of gin, multiple of them. I found one last bottle of rum for my wedding, and that's almost gone now, and bottles of wine and beer, and it's just a terrible, terrible problem. Especially as I've now discovered, like I did it with gin, now I'm doing it with rum. Rum, LaCroix, lime juice, and a little bit of maraschino cherry juice. Oh my God, I can drink and have so many of them. So many, and it's not a good thing. I gotta cut back. We've needed alcohol to get through the pandemic, some of us, but it's too much. It's become too much.
It's demasiado. And we can do it. Look, yes, the liquor area is there. Yes, does it watch me every time I do yoga? And I think, I can't wait to finish yoga so I can make myself a drink. But do we need to maybe avert our gaze, maybe cover it with a little cloth, and just, it's a Wednesday at 7. Drunk yoga, but like it's a Wednesday at 7, and I don't necessarily need to drink right now.
Yeah. So I'm fighting back against all of it. It's tough. They've assembled an army that's quite effective at its tactics at getting me, but I'm trying not to because eventually coworkers will be coming back in here and I gotta deal with that. So anyway, those are our issues. What are the foods that have been dragging you down in more ways than one during the pandemic? Or if you want to take a more positive spin on it, helping you to get through it, because all of these are my comfort foods too, like breakfast burritos. Oh God, I just love it. Sunday morning breakfast burrito. So anyway, you can post those below as well as ideas for top 10 lists that you'd like to see. And as always, Francesca, thank you so much.
So fun. Thank you, John. Likewise. Oh my God.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for being members at tier 2 and tier 3 and supporting us and the show and the network in that way. We really do appreciate it. Love getting a chance to give back a little something to you. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week. The eventual remaking of the federal judiciary, to the extent that President Biden is capable of doing that in the few years he'll have, is begun, with Merrick Garland being elevated to Attorney General, leaving his spot on the DC Circuit of Appeals now open. And it turns out it's looking like there might be a front runner to take that spot. That situation and what might happen from there will be explained to us by our guest who joins us now, senior reporter for Insider, Camila DeChalus. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Very glad to have you on. So, how is it looking? There is, as you wrote in an awesome write-up of some of the political possibilities that might come, a front runner. But who is it, and how sure is it that this might be the person?
So, ever since the vacancy of Merrick Garland's spot on the circuit court, a lot of names have been circulating, but one that kind of everybody's been talking about, and there's been a lot of buzz around, is Ketanji Brown Jackson filling that role. And this is someone who has received wide bipartisan support from not only Democrats, but also Republicans who have vouched for her character and talked about how just her expertise in the law and her past rulings have really made a great impression on both Republicans and Democrats. And so this is someone that's seen as a shoo-in, that's not, there's also reports saying that, as the moment she gets on the circuit, if there's an opening on the Supreme Court, her name will be thrown into the hat because, as you know, President Joe Biden has talked about how he wants to fill the next Supreme Court seat with a woman of color. And so her name is also top of the ticket as well.
So yeah, there's these two levels that I definitely want to talk about. The actually getting on the DC Circuit Court of Appeals, but like I'm too excited by the Supreme Court possibilities as well. What's going to happen there? So why is it that the belief is that she would immediately be a front runner were a spot to open up? Is it, as you alluded to, the fact that the Republicans have spoken favorably of her in the past, so that could potentially avert some of the trouble of a nomination battle?
Yes, this is something that, as Joe Biden has come into his presidency and has vocally supported wanting to kind of fill his cabinet seats and also the judicial branch with more people of color. This is going to see something that a lot of people want to see that he actually go through and accomplish. And I think a lot of people, she has support on the left because of some of her rulings on Trump and what she said in some of her opinions that has kind of brought a little forefront of light of where she stands on certain positions. But I think also the fact that a lot of how she writes her opinions has gained a lot of support from Republicans because she doesn't just focus on one fact, she really takes in the whole law, and you can really see her breadth of knowledge on a variety of issues, which has made her a favorite from just, every kind of political party there is. And I think a lot of people, Biden wants an easy Supreme Court win if he is given the opportunity to kind of fill this seat. And so I think a lot of people see that she won't just, appeal to, more liberal lawmakers, but she also has some backing of Republicans who have stated on the record that she is really qualified for her role now and for potential roles in the future.
So if we could delve into the land of speculation for just a second, I'm just curious. I understand the argument that she received unanimous approval from Senate Republicans. Like I get that as a potential setting up a precedent where they might support her, but that was in 2013. And 2013 Republican Party is slightly different than it is right now. So I'm curious about your personal opinion. Do you feel like they would actually feel bound by that? I mean, Mitch McConnell's philosophy on Supreme Court nominations changed quite a bit between 2016 and 2020.
Oh, completely. I think there's a little bit more pressure now for, even if they don't support her, to give a real reason to why. I mean, we've seen in some of the cabinet nominees that Biden has put forth, whether it's Vanita Gupta to fill a key role in DOJ, or what we saw with Neera Tanden, who was nominated to be at the OMB. I think what we've seen when Biden has nominated women of color or people of color is that, some Democrats have stated that they felt like it was a little bit of a double standard, that women of color that were picked to these really top positions in his cabinet or within his administration was given more tougher criticism, and Republicans went after them. And so there's been a lot of conversations whether this is a double standard and whether Republicans are picking on the people of color that Biden has nominated. And McConnell's office, of course, has stated that there is no double standard, that he's treating every candidate or nominee fairly, but especially with a Supreme Court nominee, there's going to be a little bit more pressure for them to make a substantial argument of why she couldn't fill this position, or that she's not qualified to. And so I think they're a little bit more under pressure now, because there is a little bit of an urgency to, if a seat is vacated, for them to fill it, but also for them to, I think a lot of people are monitoring, how they treat different nominees.
Sure, I think we saw quite a bit of that with the nomination battle over Deb Haaland as well. So in terms of her past, I know that some of the more recent Republican choices for the Supreme Court, whether they ended up choosing them or they were on the short list, they tended to go for people who are fairly young, who had less of a recorded case history. We had to do quite a bit more speculation about where they might fall ideologically. When it comes to Brown Jackson, how much do we know about her ideology in different areas, like like corporate power, campaign finance, criminal justice, those reproductive rights? Do we know quite a bit about her?
Well, she's actually been able to rule on quite a few different cases. And so it is really interesting when you look at her trajectory of the cases she's handled in the past. She handled, what a lot of people know of her now too, is some of her handling on Trump, on cases that involved the former president. And a lot of people kind of cited that as saying, she's a little bit more on the liberal side. But I think if you look at her trajectory of not only when, in the past 5 years, but I think you can see that she doesn't have a particular focus. I think she's covered so many things that would make her qualified for taking on the Supreme Court, which is everybody's looking at to make these really big weigh in on a lot of really key issues right now.
Interesting. And of course, we've been talking about the possibility that this individual could end up on the Supreme Court. As of right now, there are of course no openings. Is it the expectation that one might develop soon? And if so, who is the common wisdom thinking it might be?
Well, it's really interesting right now because there's a lot of reports circulating that, the Biden administration or officials within the White House is trying to kind of pressure Judge Breyer to retire. So this can kind of go a little bit more quickly. And so we could see a vacancy open up. And the justice has actually talked about retiring, but there's still a question of when. And so I think there's a lot of, there's organizations like Demand Justice and other advocacy organizations who are really trying to push the possibility of nominating someone on the Supreme Court a little bit rather now than 3 years down the road.
And you can sort of, I guess, understand the pressure right now. It's such a narrow Senate majority that anyone, God forbid and all that, but getting sick or stepping down as a result of a scandal, almost any political change in the Senate would be enough to make it potentially impossible for Joe Biden to actually nominate someone. Are you hearing concerns about that as part of the rationale to push Breyer in this direction?
I think it's in the forefront of everyone's mind that time is of the essence, that this upcoming midterm election could really decide the fate of who controls the Senate in the next 2 years. And so there is this kind of quiet behind the scenes push that these advocacy groups are meeting with White House officials, trying to understand the timeline, because there is that in the back of the mind that time is of the essence. They need to do this now rather than later when Democrats may not have control over the Senate at all. It really will depending on kind of the results of the midterm election.
Interesting. Well, if you're watching this and you want more details about the judge, Camila's write-up is available right now at Insider with a lot more details about some of the decisions and how this might play out politically. But we want to thank you for joining us and breaking down your work. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.